Have you ever had the sneaking suspicion that everything you thought was real might just be an illusion? What if I told you that your sense of self, the objects you interact with, and even the very nature of experience itself are all empty of inherent existence? It sounds like the plot of a sci-fi movie, but it's actually one of the most profound insights of Buddhist philosophy. Get ready to have your mind blown as we explore the concept of emptiness and how it can transform your entire worldview. Hey there, fellow wisdom seekers. It's your favorite truth-exploring buddy, Matt, back with another mind-expanding video. Today, we are tackling one of the most fascinating and challenging ideas in all of Buddhism, śūnyatā, or emptiness. Now, before you start thinking this is some bleak, nihilistic philosophy, let me assure you that emptiness is far from meaningless. In fact, understanding śūnyatā can be a liberating experience that frees you from the mental traps that keep you stuck in suffering. Throughout the history of Buddhist thought, there have been at least 5 distinct meanings of emptiness, each one building upon the last to create a comprehensive view of reality that will shatter your assumptions and open up new possibilities for awakening. In this video, we'll explore each of these 5 aspects of śūnyatā in depth, using vivid examples and thought experiments to help you grasp these mind-bending concepts. So grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and get ready to have your reality turned upside down. Chapter 1, No Subject. Our journey begins with the teachings of the Buddha himself. In the Sunya Sutta, he drops a bombshell on his unsuspecting audience. The world, he says, is empty of self and anything belonging to self. Let that sink in for a moment. The very sense of I that we cling to so tightly, that feels so solid and real, is actually nowhere to be found in our experience. To illustrate this point, the Buddha uses the analogy of a musical performance. When you listen to music, there's the musician, the instrument, and the sound itself. These 3 elements come together to create the experience of music. But can you find a separate, independent self that's making it all happen? Try as you might, you won't be able to locate it. The music arises from a complex web of causes and conditions, not from some unchanging essence. The same is true for our experience of the world. When we examine it closely, we find that there's no solid, permanent self at the center of it all. Our thoughts, feelings, and perceptions are constantly changing, arising and passing away based on various conditions. The self we cling to so tightly is really just a convenient fiction, a way of organizing experience that has no ultimate reality. To further illustrate this idea, let's use the metaphor of a rainbow. When you see a beautiful rainbow stretching across the sky, it appears to be a solid, independent thing. But when you try to locate the rainbow, you'll find that it's not actually there in any fixed, permanent sense. It's an appearance that arises due to specific causes and conditions, like sunlight, water droplets, and the position of the observer. The rainbow is empty of inherent existence, just like the self. Another example is the character in a dream. When you're dreaming, that you in the dream appears to be real and solid, but upon waking, you realize that this dream self was just a temporary appearance, a product of your sleeping mind. In the same way, our waking sense of self is a kind of dream, an appearance that arises due to various causes and conditions but lacks any ultimate independent reality. This might sound unsettling at first, but it's actually a liberating insight. When we start to see through the illusion of a separate self, we can let go of a lot of the anxiety, attachment, and aversion that comes with it. We can start to experience life in a more open, fluid, and compassionate way. Chapter 2, No Object. But the Buddha's teachings on emptiness don't stop at the self. The great Buddhist philosopher Nāgārjuna takes things a step further, pointing out that even the objects of our experience are empty of inherent existence. Let's use this very video as an example. As you watch it, you might assume that you are perceiving a distinct, independent thing called this video. But if we start to examine it more closely, we'll see that it's actually a complex web of interconnected phenomena. There's the script I'm reading from, the pixels on your screen, the sound waves coming out of your speakers, the concepts and ideas being conveyed, the platform it's hosted on, the device you're watching it on, and even the vast network of causes and conditions that lead to its creation, like the invention of language, the development of digital technology, and the entire history of human culture. When we really dig into it, we find that there's no solid, independent thing called this video that exists apart from everything else. It's all a fluid, ever-changing process, a dance of interdependent elements that we label and conceptualize for convenience. The same is true for any object of our experience, from the simplest sensation to the most complex abstract idea. To understand this emptiness of objects more concretely, think of a delicious meal at a restaurant. When you are eating the meal, it appears to be a distinct, independent thing. The pasta, the sauce, the flavors all seem to exist in and of themselves. But if you start to look more closely, you'll see that the meal is actually a complex web of interconnected phenomena. The ingredients that were grown and harvested, the chef who prepared the dish, the cultural traditions that shaped the recipe, the economic systems that allowed the restaurant to exist, and so on. The meal, like any object, is empty of inherent existence, dependent on an infinite network of causes and conditions. This might sound a bit abstract, but it has profound implications for how we relate to the world. When we start to see the emptiness of things, we can let go of a lot of the grasping and aversion that comes from taking them too seriously. We can appreciate the fluid, interconnected nature of reality and find a sense of ease and freedom in the midst of constant change. Chapter 3. No subject and object. So far, we've seen how both the subject and object of experience are empty of inherent existence. But the Yogācāra school of Buddhism takes things even further, pointing out that the very distinction between subject and object is itself an illusion. Think about the experience of perceiving the color red. In our ordinary way of thinking, there's a separate you who is seeing an independent redness out there. But the Yogācārans argue that this dualistic way of framing experience is fundamentally mistaken. In reality, the redness and the seeing of redness are completely interdependent, arising together as a single, seamless experience. It's like two sides of the same coin. You can't have a coin with only heads or only tails. The two sides depend on each other for their very existence. In the same way, you can't have a perceiver without something perceived, or an object of perception without a perceiving consciousness. The two are mutually dependent, arising together in a single, indivisible moment of experience. To illustrate this non-duality of subject and object, imagine you're walking in a beautiful forest. In the traditional way of thinking, there's a separate you who is experiencing the forest as a separate object. But in the moment of direct experience, is there really a separation between you and the forest? The colors, sounds, and smells of the forest are arising in your consciousness, and your consciousness is taking the shape of the forest. The two are interpenetrating and defining each other, like a dance in which the dancer and the dance are one. Or think of the experience of falling in love. When you are in love, the traditional boundaries between self and other seem to dissolve. You feel a sense of union and intimacy with your beloved, as if your two hearts and minds were merging into one. This is a taste of the non-dual nature of experience, in which the rigid separation between subject and object softens and yields to a more fluid, interconnected way of being. This non-dual view of experience has some mind-bending implications. It means that the fundamental nature of reality is not some collection of separate, independent things, but rather a fluid, seamless whole in which all the elements interpenetrate and define each other. Chapter 4, Buddhanature. So when we talk about emptiness in the context of Buddhanature, we are pointing to the inherent freedom and wholeness of our true being. We are not separate, isolated entities, but rather expressions of the vast, open awareness that is the very nature of reality itself. And just as the images on a movie screen are temporary appearances that arise and pass away, our sense of being a separate self is also a kind of projection, a convincing illusion created by the mind. When we start to see through this illusion and touch the luminous awareness that we truly are, we discover a profound sense of liberation and inner peace. This isn't something that we need to achieve or create, it's the very nature of what we are beneath the layers of confusion and conditioning. And by learning to rest in this pure awareness, we gradually dissolve the false sense of separation between ourselves and the world and awaken to the unity and interdependence of all things. Of course, this doesn't mean that we bypass or ignore the challenges and complexities of life. Rather, it means that we meet them from a place of greater wisdom, openness, and compassion. We still engage fully with the world, but we do so with a sense of lightness and flexibility, knowing that all experiences are fleeting expressions of the endlessly creative dance of awareness. Chapter 5, No Views. Now, just when you thought you had a handle on emptiness, Buddhism throws one final curveball, the idea that all views, even the most profound spiritual insights, are themselves empty of inherent existence. This is the radical claim of the emptiness of views teachings, which suggests that any conceptual framework or belief system we use to understand reality is ultimately just a provisional tool, not the final truth. Even the Buddha's own teachings, as profound and transformative as they may be, are empty of inherent existence, mere fingers pointing at the moon of ultimate reality. The danger of getting attached to views, even Buddhist ones, is that it can lead to dogmatism, closed-mindedness, and a kind of spiritual materialism where we use our beliefs to bolster the ego rather than dissolve it. We might start to identify with being a Buddhist or a meditator and use that identity to feel superior to others or avoid the messy, unpredictable reality of life as it actually is. To illustrate the emptiness of views, consider again the metaphor of the movie screen. The teachings and concepts we use to understand reality are like the images projected onto the screen. They can be informative, inspiring, or thought-provoking, but they are not the screen itself. They are temporary appearances, useful tools for guiding us towards a direct experience of the ultimate nature of reality. Just as we wouldn't confuse a map for the actual territory it represents, we must be careful not to mistake our views and beliefs for reality itself. Even the most sublime spiritual teachings are ultimately empty of inherent existence, mere fingers pointing at the moon of truth. This might sound a bit disorienting at first, as if we are pulling the rug out from under all our cherished beliefs and assumptions. But the emptiness of views is actually a profoundly liberating teaching, one that frees us from the tyranny of dogma and fixed ideas. When we recognize that all views are empty, we can engage with them more playfully and flexibly, using them as tools for awakening rather than as fixed positions to defend. We can appreciate the relative truth of different perspectives without getting trapped in any one of them, and we can rest more easily in the groundlessness of our own being, trusting the inherent wisdom and compassion of our Buddha nature to guide us through the complexities of life. Ultimately, The emptiness of views points us back to the simplicity and immediacy of our own direct experience. It invites us to let go of our reliance on conceptual frameworks and trust the intelligence of the present moment. And it reminds us that the ultimate truth is always right here, in the midst of the ever-changing dance of appearances, waiting for us to recognize it as our own true nature. Conclusion. We've covered a lot of ground in this video, exploring the 5 main aspects of emptiness in Buddhism: the lack of an inherent self, the emptiness of objects, the non-duality of subject and object, the buddhanature within us, and the emptiness of all views. It's a lot to take in, and it can be pretty mind-bending at first. But I hope this exploration has given you a taste of the profound implications of emptiness for our understanding of ourselves and the world. Emptiness isn't about nihilism or meaninglessness. It's about seeing through our limited, conditioned ways of perceiving reality and awakening to the fluid, interconnected, and ultimately inconceivable nature of things. It's a teaching that can transform our relationship to ourselves, others, and the world, opening up new possibilities for wisdom, compassion, and freedom. But don't take my word for it. The real power of these teachings lies in exploring them for yourself in your own direct experience. The Buddha himself encouraged us to be lamps unto ourselves, to test out the teachings and see if they hold up in the laboratory of our own lives. So I invite you to take these ideas and run with them, to play with them in your own experience, and see what new insights and awakenings emerge. As we navigate the ups and downs of life, we can use these teachings as a kind of compass, guiding us back to the spaciousness and clarity of our true nature. When we get caught up in the solidity and drama of our thoughts and emotions, we can remember the rainbow and the clouds and let them dissolve into the open sky of awareness. When we feel isolated and disconnected, we can remember the pasta and the music and feel our deep interbeing with all things. And when we get attached to our ideas and opinions, we can remember the movie screen and the projector and hold our views more lightly. Ultimately, the teachings on emptiness are an invitation to let go of our limited, conditioned ways of seeing and being and to relax into the vast, open, and luminous nature of reality itself. It's a journey of discovery and awakening that we are all on together, a dance of wisdom and compassion that has no beginning or end. So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep opening to the incredible mystery and beauty of this life. And remember, the truth you seek is always right here, shining in the heart of your own awareness. It's not something distant or abstract, but the very ground of your being, the source and substance of all that you experience. If this journey into the heart of emptiness has inspired you, I invite you to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share this teaching with anyone who might be ready for a radical shift in perspective. Thank you for joining me on this wild and wonderful ride through the world of śūnyatā. May these teachings be of benefit to you and all beings, and may they help us to awaken to the clear, boundless, and radiant nature of our own true being. And remember, whatever you do, don't mistake the finger for the moon. Keep looking beyond the concepts and beliefs, and trust the innate wisdom of your own awakened heart. Until next time, my friends, may you rest in the vast open space of your true nature.